The dream was a long time in the making, yet today, Martin Luther King Jr. stands 30 feet tall on the National Mall. The people who built the memorial are here in Studio A, and Washington Full Circle starts right now. To build a monument worthy of one of the most revered men of the 20th century was a monumental task. Its construction on the National Mall required an extraordinary level of dedication and determination. But the people who built it say it was a labor of love. Hello and welcome to Washington Full Circle. I'm Furman Patterson. Two of the people responsible for building the dream are with us today. Lisa Anders was the senior project manager for the memorial's construction, and Ed Jackson Jr. was the executive architect on the project. Thanks to you both for joining us today, the builders of the dream. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the extraordinary, competition for someone to build the memorial. Tell us about Ed, tell us about the contest. How were you chosen? How were Miss Anders chosen?
That's interesting. I want to make it a brief statement, but it's quite lengthy experience. With regards to how I was chosen, prior to the memorial project coming to fruition, I was not even aware that it was in the making in terms of a legislative initiative. But I was encouraged to join the fraternity by Dr. Leo Rouse, who is currently the chief of dental services at Howard University. And 8 months after I became a member, the legislation was approved, and then they came to me and said, "We want you to lead the responsibility of coming up with a design."
And so you're talking about the Alpha Phi Alpha, the fraternity that Martin Luther King was a part of himself.
That is correct.
Okay.
Are you an Alpha?
No, I'm not.
Well, at that point, I felt that one of the things that we should do is reach out to the international design community, because Dr. King was larger than just a national hero. I felt he was an international hero, and the international design community should have an opportunity to weigh in. And so we launched an international design competition, and by the time we closed the doors, we had over 900 entries from 52 countries around the world.
Also, it was a worldwide competition. Okay.
Oh, yes, yes.
Interesting.
And the winning design was number 1403, Roma Design from San Francisco, California.
Right.
And we found that the words on the boards, in addition to the graphics, were very powerful. Out of a mountain of despair comes a stone of hope. And that was the seed, that was the core element that we felt that we could build a memorial around. The words of Dr. King in a physical form and express that way.
Okay. So, Ms. Anders, then you come into the picture.
Yes. We came into the picture. Roma Design took the design development to maybe a 20% concept design and got the approval of the Commission of Fine Arts for concept. And then we competed, the foundation decided to move forward to execute the project in design, build, delivery methods. So we competed against other design build teams, and McKissick & McKissick teamed with Turner Construction and Guilford Corporation, came together and won the project to take it to its full execution.
And that your firm, McKissick & McKissick, has an interesting history too.
Yes.
The owners and that tradition of building. Tell us about that.
Right, so Daryl McKissick, who is a female, is one of 3 girls who was born to, obviously, their parents, and her great-great-grandfather started a architectural firm, and they're the oldest architectural firm in the United States for African Americans back in Nashville, Tennessee. And so Daryl McKissick is an outgrowth of this long history of builders and designers, and she started her own firm in 1990 here in Washington, D.C.
I see.
Yeah.
So you know, you've got the people selected. The person that would actually do the likeness of Martin Luther King, the sculptor. Tell us a little bit about him, Ed.
Well, to give you some background, we were actually in Florence, Italy, looking at other sculptors when we realized later on that there was an International Stone Carvers Symposium ongoing in St. Paul, Minneapolis.
Just happened to be.
You know, we're looking at one or two over there, and there are 14 here, but we didn't know about it. But when we got wind of it, after we returned from Florence, we went to the city of St. Paul and started to have conversations with the sculptors. And everyone I would describe the project to would say to me, I think you need to talk to this guy over here. And by the time we got to the fourth sculptor, and the person said the same thing, I think you need to talk to this guy over here. I turned to my group, and Dara was with us at the time.
Yes, she was.
I said, I think we're onto something. Because can you imagine other sculptors giving up this body of work for someone else? And so that was our first meeting with him. Mm-hmm. And we invited him to Washington, D.C. after the project that he was working on to try to wet his whistle, to get him interested in the project. We gave him a tour of the mall and all of the...
And I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, but I want you to...
Master Lei Sing.
Okay.
Yes. Right. From Changsha, China. Right. Yeah. And I suggested to him, in addition to looking at his portfolio, I would like to visit China to see your work up close. And on the very first visit, unsolicited, he had already modeled the Stone of Hope and the Mountain of Despair for me to see.
Hold on to that thought. That's fascinating. Don't go away. We'll be back with more of the people who built the dream when Washington Full Circle returns. And welcome back to Washington Full Circle. Dr. King dreamed of a world with equality for all. Today, his dream lives on at the National Memorial that was built to honor him. Two of its builders are with us today. Now, to quickly go back to talking about the sculptor, you said he had already sculpted something prior to your even talking to the guy.
That is correct. I think that given the fact that obviously language was a barrier, he chose another method. The proof is in the pudding. So he demonstrated, and through his demonstration, his work spoke for him. And I found it very compelling. And yes, there was a lot of controversy around the selecting of a Chinese sculptor.
Right.
But my response was this: were you listening to the words of Dr. King? It should not matter where he's from, what his religion is, what his politics is. Let's look at the person's knowledge and talents and abilities. And so I was determined that the tenets of what Dr. King was all about was the best defense to the negative vibes that we were receiving at the time.
And to look at the memorial now, it's a fantastic memorial. But from day to day, Lisa, how difficult was it to deal with things like that, like this huge chunks of granite and the conditions and the weather?
Yeah, on a day-to-day basis, I mean, first of all, I had a fantastic team that worked with me to help build the memorial. And I guess some of the major challenges were in coordinating and overcoming some of the language barriers. And with the sculptor being in China and us designing the foundation to receive this massive sculpture, it was a challenge because it's irregular shape. We weren't quite sure exactly what the weight was going to be, but we need to make sure that it doesn't come here and sink down
right.
because that's soft ground there. So in coordinating with that aspect, and then once they came and were ready to actually erect the piece, the art piece, getting the team coordinated with the team here and the crews and getting them the supplies that they needed really was sort of a chaotic harmony, if I will. I think that's a best description for that. But on the day-to-day basis, the regular, because the sculpture is just an element of the memorial, but working with the engraver who carved all the words of Dr. King on the wall, I mean, everybody really came, as you mentioned earlier, a labor of love. You just could see that additional passion that's above and beyond other projects that I worked on that came through in the craftsmanship.
Now, how many people were we talking about? The whole construction crew from day to day. How many people were you dealing with?
Oh, well, of course it varies as you start out when you're just digging the foundation up to its highest peak. We probably at its highest peak had 200 or so workers at the same time working on the job.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the architectural design, what was the main theme? We see the mountain of despair, but tell us what the overall theme. What did the organizers want people to come away from the memorial thinking?
Well, in the early stages, even before we had the competition, I brought together what I called my programming committee. Individuals who had backgrounds in art, architecture, landscape architecture, museum curators specializing in African American culture and history. And with this group, what we had to do was to define programmatically what we wanted the design community to respond to. And so we sort of honed on a phrase, the man, the movement, and the message. But as we moved through that process of defining the man, the movement, and the message, ultimately we felt that it was his message that would last the test of time. You go 2050 in the future, young people may not be able to recognize his face as we do, but his message is timeless. And so in the design competition package, we insisted that the solution had to have the ability to capture the words of Dr. King, not his image, but his words.
Amazing. Now, you know what the design is going to be. You've got your contractors and so forth. What time period were you given to complete this thing, to have it ready for the public?
So contractually, our time was 609 days. I'll probably never forget that number. Our team was able to deliver on that 2 weeks early. And so even we had some hiccups built in to the process because there was a lot of approvals that were required. That was the time frame.
Wow.
Yep.
And 2 weeks early, you said?
2 weeks early.
Wow,
Yes,
that's
yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
But we've got lots more to talk about. Stay with us, more with the people who built the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial on the National Mall when Washington Full Circle returns. Welcome back to today's conversation with two people who helped build the monument to one of the greatest nonviolent leaders in world history. So it has been completed. Standing there before this magnificent memorial, what were your thoughts, Ed, that first day when you knew it was all done?
I've been asked that question many times, and they wanted to know, did I have an aha moment? Actually, I had many aha moments. When we made our first trip to China, and the sculptor had modeled the Mountain of Despair and the Stone of Hope, full scale, out of clay. And I stepped down out of the bus, and I saw what the finished product could look like. Although it was in clay, but I saw the real thing, as they say. And it blew my mind. I was speechless for a number of reasons. One, I recalled the skepticism. There were those who felt that, one, we couldn't do it, two, that it wouldn't get built, or that it would not be done in a compelling way. One of the promises I made to Mrs. King, I said to her, I promise you, I will not let you down. And one of the ironies of that experience, when I selected Master Lay through an interpreter, Master Lay said to me, I promise you, I won't let you down.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Destined to happen. So Lisa, what were your thoughts that first time seeing the completion and knowing that was done?
So for me, you know, I'm doing the job of being the senior project manager and going about this as my normal duties of making sure concrete gets poured, making sure the sculpture pieces are put in place and everyone's doing their job. And so when I'm in the throes of the main part of the schedule, you know, there were moments, mainly when we had visitors come to the site, where I stepped back and I said, wow, you know, this is more than the typical construction. I mean, I knew it was, but I'm doing my daily job. And then when you see other people experience it in the making, you step back. And then for me, I can remember it vividly. There was one evening we were there, we were waiting to get ready to test the lighting. And the lighting had been done, but we were just sort of seeing its finished product, and it had rained. And sun was coming down. And I walked out to the job site and stood at the front entrance. And I just stood there. I was by myself, and it was, you know, the dusk sun lighting. And I just said, wow. I just was a part of building the King Memorial and the National Mall, and that's when it really hit me, you know, it just impacted me that way, yeah.
I'll pass one other experience on to you. When I was selected to take on the responsibility of coming up with a design, although through an international design competition, I called two of my university professors, Professor Schaefer's, who was professor of architecture, and Professor Lockhart, professor of art, and I said, I've got this project, and I want you all to weigh in and to be my sounding board. And they were part of my initial group that I pulled together. When the sculptor had finished the product, I invited the two of them. This is 13 years later after I had invited them to participate in the project. And we walked up to the finished product, which they had not been a part of through the entire process. And they broke down in tears.
Really?
And they hugged each other and they pulled me in. And I said, I am not going to cry. So I pushed away from them and walked away. Yeah.
A lot of people cried when they came to see it during the construction.
Yeah. Now, I've been down to the memorial a few times, and I'm struck by how it changes with the light and also with the rain. It turns pinkish. It's an interesting granite.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That was another controversial issue also. Why did you select that particular granite? And I recall having a conversation with the Commissioner of Fine Arts, and one commissioner said, well, why didn't you get a chocolate granite so that you could reflect the tone of Dr. King's skin color? And sarcastically I said, which was also true, God did not make chocolate granite. And what the reason for the selection of that particular granite, during the selection of the winning design, Professor Wu from China, who was also a part of that international jury, said to us at dinner one night, he said, "What we're trying to find the needle in the haystack." And he said, "What we are looking for is something that is in harmony with the National Mall, but at the same time distinctively different."
Mm-hmm.
All right? If you look at the color of the Washington Monument, Lincoln, and Jefferson, this color ties the King Memorial to the other three. So that's the harmony.
Yeah.
And distinctively different comes in the actual design solution.
There you go. Fantastic. This has been fascinating. I appreciate you both stopping by to tell us about it. The people who built the memorial, come back someday. I'd love to have you back. That's it for Washington Full Circle. Thanks to our guests, and thanks to you for watching. We'll see you again next time.